But America should keep her mouth shut wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth.
Dad, I've decided to surrender to the will of Allah.
Say what?
I've become a Muslim. I don't know how to thank you for sending me to D.C. I feel like I've almost become a new man.
Wait a minute, can you give me a discount on some of them bean pies?
I mean that shit, because these white folks see us as thugs. I don't care what y'all think. I don't care if you think you a lawyer, if you a man, if you an African-American, if you whatever the fuck you think you are. We thugs and niggas to these motherfuckers.
I have been on a research. Music is psychology, see? And if the music does not penetrate the heart, the soul, and the mind, and the body, then you ain't gonna feel it.
Answer is this. I call myself an African person because our people originated in Africa. So when you find African people in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Latin America, in Brazil, in various places in the world, they're still African people, even though they were born in that place. And I'm very proud of the fact that I am an African person.
I gotta say that even in the midst of all this capitalist excess, this disgusting display of conspicuous consumption, this exercise in bougie exhibitionism, it's beautiful to see.
So, brother, where your poems at? Huh? How you gonna call yourself a revolutionary and you ain't got no poems?
مرحبا وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا شيخ اليوم بالغلط وقعت أمي شاورما مع زيادة طحينية.
نعم.
وكمان قطعة تفاح وتقريبا 3 لتر مي. فمش عارف هل أكمل صيامي ولا أطعمني الله وسقاني.
Peace. What's up, everyone? This is another episode of, I almost said Column Conscious. I'm happy that I've seen the title because I almost thought, because I look at Doniven, I almost thought this was like the other thing. Because Doniven is in every little aspect of the magazine now.
No, it's all good. It's not like I got a degree to work on or anything like that, but we out here.
But yeah, this is going to be, I think, a really good episode. This is the first time, I think, Diamond, we have 2 guests at the same time. So, like, this is going to be, like, super dope. I'll tell you who our guests are, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. But first, we have the Imam, and he's with the Islamic Unity Center in Fort Worth. Is that near the Dallas area, Imam? Because I'm not sure, because I'm not familiar with the Texas area.
Yes, Dallas and Fort Worth are part of like one metroplex. It's kind of like a larger multi-city area. They're like right next door to each other, and there's some smaller cities placed in between.
Yeah. So so that was our first guest. That is Imam Abdullah Qasim al-Mujahid. I feel like even though I'm Muslim, I don't remember how to have all the pronunciation. And then our other guest is, and I just met him for the first time in person last week in Philly here, is blackchai. He's one half of Pathfinders. And but I'll let both of you guys introduce yourselves. I'll let the Imam go first, and then Chai, I'll let you go after.
All right. Well, as the formal greeting goes, Assalamu alaikum. May the peace of God be upon all of you. I am a Imam. I am a Muslim, which just means I'm a guy who believes in God and tries to be good for people, to be good to people, to be good for people, to lead people to a better understanding of what it means to have a relationship with that which they understand to be their creator. I am not anything special. At most, I am a normal human being that likes to wear white. That's about it. I don't like to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm formally educated in religion and religious studies, theology. I studied actually formally as a Christian to begin with. Went to Christian seminary, began as a Southern Baptist, then transferred into Episcopalianism. And then from there, through my studies, I accepted Islam, started studying Arabic and many other languages. And now I do what I do.
I was gonna say, Chai, you can go.
Okay. I'm blackchai. I'm a rapper. I'm from New York. My government name is Tyler, so y'all can call me either. I don't really care. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really formally learned or educated in like anything that I rap about. Really, it's just like kind of accumulated experience. I rap a lot about like leftist politics, heavily centered around like communism and things like that. I rap about like my experience growing up as like and just existing as like a Black person in this country. I grew up around a lot of white people, so I've experienced a lot of the like comical racism. You feel me? Like not just like the institutional part, but like the actual part that people think is the only part that exists. Like being called slurs and stuff like that. But then, you know, I rap a lot about like spiritualism. I was into Buddhism for a pretty long time. Really just any of my interests. It's just stuff like that. And then I'm in a group called Pathfinders with my brother Nasir, Muhammad, Elohim. And he's actually like Muslim and very practiced in it and like does a lot of outreach. He goes to prisons and like goes to his community center and all of that. But he couldn't make it tonight. So I'm just here representing both of us, I guess. But yeah.
Thanks both of you for like coming on, especially like, you know, like I think this is interesting. We have an Imam and then we have a rapper, but I think because of the topic, everything blends in. But also like we're all fans of like music here, so like everything blends in. But I was gonna say, Doniven, because I know you had a few things you wanted to share before we actually started the program.
Well, yeah. Let me go ahead and do a little screen sharing, if it'll allow me to do that. But
okay,
or maybe it's actually just sharing right now. Can you see it?
Yeah, like okay, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, it's there now.
Beautiful. So I want to first shout out one of the member orgs of the Black Alliance for Peace, specifically the DC Citywide Alliance, Pan-African Community Action. This weekend, they are going to be officially be launching, the People's Pan-African Wellness Front, which is a community-based grassroots program led by PACA, Pan-African Community Action, to confront the health disparities impacting African/Black working-class communities in Southeast DC. This is inspired by the revolutionary legacies such as the Black Panther Party's people-free medical clinics and the Cuban healthcare model. PBWF seeks to deliver immediate relief while organizing towards a long-term self-determination of community control of health. It'll target in Congress Heights, focus on 5-block neighborhood radius as a base for community organizing and service delivery. You can also volunteer as well, so definitely get in contact with PACA Southeast DC. You can go to pacapower.org. You can follow them at PACA DMV on Instagram. To get further in contact. We've talked about looking for folks who either want to volunteer or if you have any professional experience in the healthcare field, definitely get in contact with Pan-African Community Action. Why the program should exist? They put down the DC healthcare system, like the broader U.S. system, is profit-driven, structurally racist, and deeply unequal, things that we should all know at this point. Black residents, especially those east of the Anacostia River, face higher rates of chronic illness, maternal mortality, and a life expectancy gap of more than 15 years compared to white residents. The Pan-African People's Wellness Front responds to the crisis as a revolutionary survival program, providing practical services to meet immediate needs while building political power to transform the systems that produce illness and inequality. This was the program's goals going into March 2025 to August 2026. Its long-term vision, they aim to expand its services into additional neighborhoods, scale up popular education, and anchor broader campaigns for community control over health. This initiative is part of PACA's larger strategy to build forums for participatory democracy and develop a mass movement for people's power. So if anyone in Paka is watching, definitely put in the chat which specific day. I want to say, ooh, this is like, that was trippy. I want to say it's Sunday. I think it's Sunday that when they're gonna be launching it, but I want to say definitely it's this weekend. Definitely give Paka your support. Follow them on social media for more. And hopefully this inspires folks from across the country to do similar things as well. I think right now they're doing blood tests, or they're focusing on diabetes and high blood pressure for the moment, but they're wanting to expand to more things real soon. So that is my first announcement. The second announcement. Thanks, shout out for sending the org. The second announcement, I'm not going to be sharing my screen. I'm just going to be reading from the BAP website. Recently a member and a proud supporter of Black Alliance for Peace, Brother Khalid, had passed away. So I wanted to just make sure, for those of you who haven't been able to see the post on, I wanted to read to you from the website. The Black Alliance for Peace mourns the transition of Brother Khalid Rahim on February 14, 2026, and sends our condolences to his family and his comrades. Brother Khalid was part of many organizations and formations throughout his revolutionary life, including the Black Panther Party, National Council for Urban Peace and Justice, the New African Independence Party, the National Black Radical Political Congress, the Jericho Movement, the Gang Peace Council of Western Philadelphia, the National Black Liberation Movement Unity Initiative, and many others. He was a revolutionary organizer, a prolific writer, and a dear comrade. Brother Khalid joins the Philadelphia chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1970. Involved in various campaigns and programs of the BPP, Khalid was arrested and incarcerated for over 10 years. As a political prisoner, he embraced the teachings and practices of Islam and struggled from inside to fight for the rights and liberation of all prisoners. After his release, Brother Khalid organized extensively in community in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and continued involvement with local and national initiatives and organizations. BAP had the honor of collaborating with Brother Khalid and participating alongside him and many others revolutionary comrades at the most recent National Black Radical Political Convention in October 2025 in Philadelphia. There, Brother Khalid articulated as clear as ever the need for an independent and revolutionary Black political process based in principled unity. He was an elder who never gave up in the struggle for the liberation of oppressed peoples, and he contributed to our people's liberation and anti-colonial struggle until his last breath. We salute Brother Khalid and embrace his example of committed, principled struggle. Today, we celebrate his life and honor his struggle. Brother Khalid Rahim, present.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I was going to say the October 2025 National Black Conference, I was there. So, and I didn't formally meet everybody. So I do believe, though, I might have come across that brother, which is a bit unfortunate that, he's since passed away. Mm-hmm. But I was going to open up the conversation by saying, because I was trying to figure out what angle I want to take this from, because when I initially thought of the title and political resistance, my brain went to the 80s and my brain went to Public Enemy and when, Sister Soldier, and that's why she's in the intro. But then on top of that, and because being raised in a nation, I was exposed to music, but then I also wasn't exposed to music the way someone Christian, when my parents were growing up, they went to church and they were in the choir. But now I think about it, they're just all types of aspects of music and Blackness. They've all shaped what we would call spiritual resistance. And I think the first thing I think of course, like I said, is Public Enemy. But then the other thing I think of, if I'm thinking spiritual resistance, the first two things my mind goes to are Christian spirituals. And then, and I know the Imam probably knows more about this than me, but nasheeds, which one of my recent articles was about the power of nasheeds. But yeah, those are the main things I think of when I think of music and Black spiritual resistance. I was gonna say, Doniven, do you want to say anything? Or... You should really have one guest. I'm dang, we have to do this.
But no, and I also can put in my perspective too. For those who don't know, I was formerly my spiritual journey. It was raised Christian for most of my entire life. non-denominational Christian, mind you. So yeah, the church like maybe 10 minutes away from my mama's house, and we would go there every Sunday. I stopped being religious around my junior year, but I still made sure to try to keep some sort of spiritual connection in as well. I think for me, it just came from a and let me know too if I'm like, I don't want to come off like as if I'm trying to put somebody's practice down or anything like that. I want to make sure that that's like not being spoken. But currently my journey is just knowing that there's a higher power there. They're watching me. There's too many things that have happened to me where I'm like, this is more than just coincidence. This has to be something beyond my control. And just being able to better communicate with them, I think is where I'm at this point. But regards to music, like gospel was huge in my mom's house. Like whether it's us like cleaning up in the Sunday, or sometime I wake up, I hear the gospel music playing or the R&B playing. Mom is like, wake up, I'm cleaning up the house. So I gotta wake up early in the morning and stuff like that. My mom would play it like on the way to school sometimes. So like not even just Kirk Franklin, but like a diverse set of gospel artists were playing. Along with like some Jill Scott too. My mom likes a Jill Scott song she would mix in the car. It also kind of influenced what music I could listen to. Like because I came from like a very like Christian heavy household other than my mom, I didn't listen to a lot of like rap music, a lot of uncensored rap music until I got much older. So everything I was hearing was on the radio, and like not everything on the radio is good. It's catchy, but it ain't the best. So
I was gonna say I'll let the Imam go first. What is your connection when you think of like, because I mean everyone has like, this is like I'd say pretty diverse, even though like there's like I was gonna say 3 Muslims. I forgot Nas isn't here. There's 2 Muslims and then 2 non-Muslims. I was gonna ask you, what is your connection, I'd say, with music and the divine as it relates to that?
Okay, so music was like an incredibly potent part of my spiritual journey. Like not just potent in a way that it strongly influenced all of my decisions, but also incredibly important and foundational, seeing as how my father is a professional musician, has been since I could even remember. I've always had like thousands of dollars of equipment in my house growing up. My father played in the gospel band in church my entire life. I, as soon as I got of age, also did. I started taking piano lessons when I was like 3, and then I went on to play guitar, bass guitar, sung as well, and I played guitar in a gospel band for probably, I don't know, 7 years. We were called the Lions of Judah, and we and I played for at one point at a gospel conference in Mississippi, twice actually, for about 4,000 people, sometimes even more. The second conference was almost 10,000. And I mean, I've heard everything. Like when I say gospel was like foundational to my rearing. I mean, I know every artist you could possibly name, right? And that influenced everything for me because music held such an important part of my journey. I began my journey spiritually in music. As soon as I started to ask questions, though, right? Because I'm a very intellectual person, and my father raised me to be someone who always questioned his reality. I started asking questions about my religion and my practice, and that kind of led me to have a falling out with the Christian church because they often didn't have the answers I needed, that it didn't quell me. It didn't quell or quench my curiosity, right? So I kept looking, and I, found myself just becoming very much like our rapper friend here. I would write raps. Like I have a whole mixtape back in the day. It's not public, but I have a whole mixtape I used to play heavy metal too. Like I started going to every genre I could possibly get into, right? Everything, right? I used to blow people out of the water, by the way. Like I used to go in the studio, lay it one try, and the ad libs, right? The boys were like, "Bro, we never seen anybody come in and lay a track like that." But it was just because I was experienced with music my whole life, and it was such an integral part of my journey. And I'll share this with you. It's very short, but it's when I was younger, I used to love like music and poetry, and I found an artist that I really loved. Like his music was very spiritually enlightening, and it was very soft, and it was soft to the heart. And his name was Cat Stevens, the musician. Right? Cat Stevens, loved Cat Stevens. Right, I loved Cat Stevens. I had every single album. I had his old discography, right? And I was always wondering because I got to an age and I said to myself, I said, why can't I find any more music from him, right? So I remember looking up his discography, typing it in, Cat Stevens, on Google. This was like 2009, 2008, back when Google was like a baby, and YouTube was like in its infancy as well. And I looked up Cat Stevens' discography, looked at all, and I noticed that it just stops, right? It just stops in like the early 80s, late 70s, right? And I was like, did he die, right? What happened here? But I knew he didn't die, but then I read his Wikipedia and it said he accepted Islam and that he took on the moniker of Yusuf Islam. So I said, okay, like, has he made any music under this new moniker, this new name? So I typed in Yusuf Islam on YouTube, and this is like, I was probably like 14, 13 years old at the time. And I found a nasheed that he wrote for his son called Az for Allah, right? And it's just a very basic nasheed teaching the Arabic alphabet, but it also teaches the basics of Islam within it, right? And when I first heard this song, I was immediately affected, like in my heart, something was different about this sound, the poetry, and this belief, right? Like I didn't know what Muslims were, right? The most I knew about Muslims at that time was Fox News propaganda or propaganda on the news that said that they're all terrorists and they blow people up and hit women, or Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan, right? And I was like, that's all I knew, right? NOI and terrorist, like that's all I knew, right? So when I first see this video, this song, it affected me so deeply because it was so beautiful, and I said, wow, I believe, I was like, wow, I could the power of these words, and it became important to me, the song. And I noticed that every single time I was in a spiritual low, I would always return to this song, right? Always returning to this song, It would bring me some happiness. And what I began to notice, and this was like through many years of journeying through theology and Taoism. I mean, this is just the books I'm reading right now, right? Like that's what I always put up, the books I'm reading right now. But like, I have a library in my attic, right? Like I've read too many books to count of different faiths and different theologies. I went through a long journey. And I remember I noticed that I kept going back to the song. And I noticed something, that in the song, there's this section, and it's which is the like L sound in Arabic. And he says, La is for La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, right? Which is the Shahada, which is the witnessing statement of a Muslim, right? And I was saying this statement in this song because I memorized the song as a young man. I would always say it. I said it for 10 years straight, never understanding what I was saying, right? Because he doesn't translate it in the song. And then one day I realized, after studying all these different religions and all these different things, I said to myself, have I gave Islam a chance? Right? I studied, I mean, for years, I studied almost every religion you could possibly think, right? You could name some weird, like James, right? Like most people don't even know what that is. Or you could name like some Mesoamerican god and I'll probably know it, right? Like I studied so many things, but I never actually opened the Quran and read it. And I felt embarrassed. It was like a moment, I was like 23. I was like, wow, I didn't even give this a chance. And I've read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. right? Like some niche, like, you know what I mean? Like niche Buddhist crazy scriptures and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like weird stuff, right? But I didn't read the book of like at that time 1.8. You know, you can imagine I'm a little embarrassed, you know, as especially as a studious person as I was. So I opened it up and I started watching videos too about Islam at the serious. And then I immediately realized I had this weird connection to this song. I couldn't understand. It affected me deeply. And I finally realized what I was saying in the song. And it like opened up an entire like world to me. That I realized that everything that I had studied about God and all the conclusions I had come to in my philosophical and spiritual journey, I found within the boundaries of Islamic theology and at least a traditional Orthodox theology. And I was convinced personally. It convinced me of something later. The Quran in itself was, I compared it to all the literature I had read from hundreds of years, of thousands of years of literature. I've read all the years, and I went back. You know, I've read books that are thousands of years old. I compared that to what I had read before, and I said, this is unique in the way it's built, the way it's architecturally like written. It's nothing's like it, and it convinced me that it had to have come from some form of divine source personally, and I started to lean on it, and it became the foundation of a lot of how I interacted with the world. I was already very like rebellious and revolutionary. I grew up in a very Pan-African household, right? Like our internet's name is Akibulan, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you already know what it is, right? Like we don't call Africa in this house, right? You know, so it's like I already grew up with that kind of like strong mentality of like Black people are not Black, that we are the original human, that we are, man, but we are woman, that we are not to be dehumanized, and we have the concept of Black excellence and the concept of putting everything foot forward. We build everything ourselves, right? So whenever I had all that as my foundation, I picked up the Quran and I was like, this is only further strength those integral parts of my personality and making me lean further into that. And it made me feel more confident to move forward. And all of that because of a song. Right? So music, right? God guides how he guides, and it can be through music.
I was gonna say my mom is watching, and while she was watching, she commented flashback when you were talking, and I'll say why before I let Chai talk. So you said Cat Stevens, and the moment you said Cat Stevens, I knew exactly where this was going. I'm a huge Cat Stevens / Yusuf Islam fan, and that Ramadan album, when I was a baby, my mom used to run that album all the time. And I can hear it right now. A is for Allah, nothing but Allah. As a beginning for Bismillah. Like I can hear it as you started talking. And like that album though is, yeah, like I was also saying like the Shahada before I even really understood like what Shahada meant or like what is a Shahada. And I think music definitely did that for me. But I'm gonna go to Chai now because I saw him perform last week, and like nobody raps like you, man. Like you you had like I was watching you because I had listened to your music. I was watching you. I was like, oh shit! Like I mean, I'm not gonna try to not to curse but I was like, he can rap. But I was gonna say, I want to you to speak to that, and also, if you don't mind me asking, is there a way that ties into like a religious aspect that ties into your music? Because I have listened to like a good chunk of your music, but I haven't listened to everything.
So I mean, like, well, I guess like to start, I mean, like growing up, I guess music was always like kind of a big thing. I didn't even really start playing or making music till I was like 14 or 15. And when I was playing guitar. Like I've been playing guitar since I was a teenager. But like probably my earliest memory is sitting in the backseat of my mom's car, listening to Aaliyah on the radio, and like DMX too, because I'm from a little north of the city, like kind of around like the northern part of Westchester, and DMX had a house there, and like near where my grandma lived, and I remember us driving past his like McMansion all the time. So I was really into DMX, and I was really into Aaliyah as a kid. But like regarding like religion and stuff, my family's from South Carolina originally. So like I think most of my relatives on my mom's side, my dad is Sicilian. So on my mom's side, it's like all like Southern Baptist, like very into that. But I get my mom was born in New York, so they kind of migrated up. So like I like the first maybe 9-10 years of my life, I remember we would always go to church. But I never really took much away from, like, I would pray at night and everything, but it's kind of just because you're a kid and your mom's like, all right, go to bed, time to pray and say the, whatever. But my only real memory is like after the church part was over, and then we'd be in the basement, like eating like soul food. That was the part I remember. Like, so like I guess that doesn't really tie too much into the music that I make. I mean, because when I started getting really into like rapping and like doing and like writing and all this was around the same time I kind of discovered like Pan-Africanism, like midway through high school, and it all kind of taught, like I was really into the Boondocks. And through the Boondocks, I got really into like underground rap, because the first season they had a whole episode where the soundtracks just stuff off Mad Villainy, MF Doom stuff. And then through that, I also just randomly found the autobiography of Malcolm X in my basement, my aunt's copy. So I read that. And then I started getting into like really like a lot of like the Pan-African, like 90s rap, like Native Tongues, Tribe, all that. And all that happening at the same time kind of just like galvanized me into just like starting on that kind of path. Because before that, I was just like I was, until I was maybe 16, 17, I was one of like less than probably 10 Black people in my school. It was like mostly white people, and then like some Albanians and a lot of Guatemalan kids. So like when that started, I remember like I stopped standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I started being really unapologetically like loud, and a lot of people stopped like messing with me, like because they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, and this was also around the time, like, because I graduated high school in 2013. So it was like around the time of like Trayvon Martin and like Michael Brown and all that stuff, while I was still interacting heavily with like the people in my community and like my neighborhood and area who were like all very upstate New York too. It's weird because you think of New York as like one of the most liberal states, but upstate, they think it's the South. Like they think it is like especially where I'm from, and it's only like an hour drive from the Bronx. But the people there moved there because they didn't want to be around brown people anymore. You feel me? Like, so it's a lot of that. Yeah, I just started kind of gravitating towards all this. I started spending more time in the city, and like, I don't know, like, I don't even know how I kind of developed the way I do write and like rap and everything. It just like kind of happened. Like, I just remember diving super deep into like really deep like 90s underground stuff, like the Juggernauts and like Cannibal Ox and all this like really off-kilter stuff, and like just kind of like going back. Like I also had a friend who was a white friend, but he was like super in. Last time I was at my parents', I found a copy of the Quran in our basement that I remember my white friend had given me because he was studying Islam when we were like 20. Yeah, so I brought that home with me. But like it was just like a mixture, like reading a lot of like Malcolm X and like I have a book of speeches from like Huey Newton. And like obviously I've read like Revolutionary Suicide and like And a lot of like the political stuff from the 70s, like well, I guess this is from the 90s whenever Angela Davis wrote Our Prison's Obsolete, right? That was the 90s.
I think that was
So like
2015.
was it?
I think it might have been like 2015. Yeah, it might be 2015, 2012 or something like that.
Okay, it's definitely more modern than I think it was, but
it's 2003. It was
okay. That's closer to what I'm thinking. Yeah. As if I don't have the copy sitting on my desk right now. But yeah, it's just like a big mixture of that over just like kind of a decade. It's just like slowly like tapping into all these different things. And then also through like rap music, like I kind of like, you know, like you kind of glaze over like when I started reading Malcolm X, I was looking into like Nation of Islam. And then like when I got really into like Wu-Tang, I was looking into like 5%er stuff. And I have a cousin who's a 5%er too. So like I think I did memorize the supreme mathematics, but I kind of gave up at the alphabet. And then like, you know, you just, yeah, it's just like long time of accumulation of things. And like, I never really like dove super deep into one particular thing. Like a lot of my knowledge is kind of like, I guess that because like my music is very non sequitur and stream of consciousness, which is kind of just the way my brain operates. So I guess like the way I kind of have consumed all this information is reflected directly in the way that I do make music. Because it's just like touching on a bunch of topics. And it's like sometimes I'm more direct and like on point about one thing. And sometimes it's just like sporadic. And I'm just like kind of making these like connections that some people might pick up on, and then some things it's like it only really makes sense the way I rationalize it in my own brain. But then like I see people write about my stuff and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like they write really, so a lot of the stuff that people have written about my music I think is deeper than my actual music. Not to say like my music is shallow, but like just like the way they write it is very elegant, and I'm like, wow, I'm just like rapping. But yeah, and then like growing up too, it's like we like, I think a lot of Black households had this, no matter like how actually like into it or like devout your household was. Like we always like we had all the masks, and it's like we didn't know where we were from. Like my family is from the South, like directly descended from like slavery, so like we, you know, don't know like what country we're from. Which is also a weird feeling now being in Brooklyn, because it's like most of the people here are Caribbean, or like their parents came here from somewhere in West Africa. So like they're just like one generation removed. And not a lot of my friends are like actually just like whatever, like I forget what the term is. The stupid thing that people be talking about where it's like, oh yeah, we're like the real African Americans.
Oh,
or
like
whatever.
ADOS?
Yeah,
like FBA.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Yeah, that, and like, yeah. But I think like the thing I connected with mostly was Pan-Africanism, because I think Malcolm X is definitely the thing that kind of galvanized me the most into like my current way of thinking and everything. And then like just getting into like things like Buddhism too has definitely heavily influenced my music. And I just kind of did that for like more personal reasons, like wanting to like kind of like accept like the ideas of like impermanence and things like that into my life, to try and like basically just like kind of chill out and not be stressed out about things you can't control and everything like that. Like it feels very random. I feel like I just have like a big wide array of influences that just kind of like filter through little aspects and like mold into whatever I'm trying to communicate. But yeah, I guess that's basically it. And then just like music, it's just kind of been a backdrop through all of it until like I started directly participating in it, and then kind of it became more of like a conscious thing. But like we definitely had the R&B playing. We definitely played the Jackson 5 Christmas cassette all the time. I remember after whenever Get Rich or Die Trying came out, my mom would blast in the club on me and my sister's birthday on the stereo at like 8 a.m. to wake us up. And like my mom grew up in the 80s. So like she put me on to like a lot. When I started getting really into like making music, she put me on to a lot of like the 80s rap. Like she was already like Run DMC, Public Enemy, all that. So like I definitely had like good like sources in my life to like kind of direct me in like a pretty good way. And like now, like being an artist, I've like met a lot of like older artists, like rappers from like the 90s and like early 2000s who also like kind of steer a lot of that direction. Like this summer I met Vort Omega from Cannibal Ox, and like he's like the homie, and like some of like the Def Jux guys I know, and like they also just kind of help with like navigating life like as an artist now that things are becoming more serious. And like and then just picking up game from like watching and observing how people do things. And like a lot of this underground rap scene that I'm a part of is very like magnified like through spirituality, but it's not like as direct as you would like assume. Like, I don't know, people might think it's like preachy, but or something like that. But it's like very, like I can't even really describe it in a good way. But like, I don't know if you know like who like a Lucid is from Arm & Hammer or something like that. Like he kind of raps like he's delivering a sermon. Like people have said that he kind of has the same energy as like a preacher or something, and like and like on the pulpit in a church or something like that. And a lot of the stuff is very non sequitur, kind of coded, which also kind of fits into the whole thing, because like y'all understand like the coded language of like is kind of like a necessity, and that kind of goes back years and years of like having to do that out of necessity because of the ways that we've been like oppressed and kind of had to like do things in secret. And then the way that has evolved into like modern code switching and things like that. And it's just like, just a big boiling pot of all these like hundreds of years of influence. And that's kind of what hip hop is too. It's like an amalgamation of pretty much every genre of music, and every genre of music is pretty much just Black music for the most part. So I don't know what that sums up to, but that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's interesting you talk about like the different kinds of like spiritual aspects of hip hop, because I think, and maybe because I mean, we have a few people in the watching. It's always interesting because when I think of Muslim rappers, right, my brain goes to Wu-Tang, my brain goes to Lupe Fiasco, my brain goes to, Yasin Bey. And then when people talk about Christian rap, they're like, turn it off. And I think about like, and I don't know what that is. Like, I had a running joke with a friend a few years ago. Muslims are better rappers, Christians are better singers. But I know that's like not necessarily true. But I think about it is like when you look at some of the spiritual, like even the messaging back then, it was preachy, but it was like preachy to a good point. Even like you were mentioning DX Slippin' is not like an overall super religious song, but I know DMX was like, he was a devout Christian before he died, and he would always talk about God in his music. And the song Slippin' is a highly spiritual song where it's like, if you're going through something, that's a song people really need. But I was going to pivot it to Doniven because I know it's been a while, and you have a few thoughts based on what we heard.
No, I think to jump on your Christian rapper point first and foremost, at least from because I also kind of empathize with Chai. I hope am I saying your name right? Is it Chai?
Yeah.
I had to double check. I had the Spider-Verse scene playing in my head. I'm like, how did they say it in the movie?
Yeah, because the name was originally, it was a group when I kind of first started making music. I had a friend, Vishnu, and it was just blackchai, because and then like we kind of moved away from each other, and I just kind of took the name because he kind of started doing other stuff, and I was like, all right, it's better than anything I could come up with. I think I was running with some like some like anime kind of name. I don't know. I was like, this fits way better.
No, that's dope though. But what I was saying is that at least from when I sat and like listened to like Christian rap from a lot of like Christian rappers, a lot of Christian. So I'm in a weird camp. I'm not sure if y'all do this too, but I always distinguish like gospel from like Christian music. Like I always felt like gospel was like, yeah, obviously like the religious context is similar in many ways, but how black people and white people practice like Christianity and spirituality in general is going to be, oh no.
He'll be back, but
okay. But how both black folks and white folks like practice spirituality was always going to be different. So I'm like always associated gospel music as its own unique thing, because a lot of the Christian music that I would like, a lot of like the Christian music, the music catered to white people and white Christians, like it reminded me a lot of like pop music in the sense that that it felt manufactured. Like it felt like I didn't, from my own listens, it didn't feel like I was gaining something new. It didn't feel like an experiment was happening with this. It just felt like the same. Like I could predict when the swell was going to happen in a song, or I can predict when they were going to say Jesus in like the third verse or something like that. But like it just felt like it was meant, like it kind of gave this little culture industry thing where it was just satisfying a particular need of predictability at that time. But with gospel, and even kind of going to Christian rap music, like I found a few Christian rappers that were like you said, like with DMX, they just have, but the thing is like they just so happened to be Christian. That was the thing. It didn't. And why I say this just so happened that they were Christian was because they weren't afraid to talk about their flaws. And that's when I was hooked into a Christian rapper's song, was when they were just able to be vulnerable with it. In a way, like with Slipping, where it was like, oh, this hurts to listen to. Like this is brutally honest. I've been in that type of space before. Meanwhile, like I'm not sure if his name is like NF. It's like a white dude, something like that. And that's why I empathize with Chai, was because I also like, so I didn't grow up in Chicago. I grew up in like Peoria, which is like 2.5 hours south of it. But my high school was in like a smaller like village inside of Peoria, like called Bartonville, and that was like extremely white. Cornfield across the street from where we did marching band practice. I think it was a cornfield, could have been grain or something like that. But like I would have white kids like give me that kind of music. They're like, oh, listen to this guy, he's dope as heck, like NF or whomever it was. And like you should listen to him. And I'm listening to him and I'm like, what you think? I'm like, I didn't want to be rude, but I was like, I feel like he's hammering something in at me that I didn't deserve. Like it's like it feels like I've heard of this before. Like you kind of see where I'm getting at. It's tough. And I can understand why folks might get an appreciation for the song and stuff like that, but I'm like, I feel like the same way that folks like Christian music separate from gospel is the same way like folks like Taylor Swift.
Okay.
It's predictable. It's to the point. It gets what it needs to be done. Like, and maybe that's a very hot take. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna have any white Christians in the comments being like blasphemy, but but no, that's kind of where my thoughts.
One thing that I think is interesting though is like, because I think about it, I've heard like, you know, like you were saying, where there are Christian rappers and then there are Christian rappers and then there are rappers who happen to be Christian, but rarely do I come across like, I know rappers who happen to be Muslim, but rarely do I come across like straight up like Muslim rap. I mean, with the exception of maybe like the last few J Electronica drops, which I wrote about. And it's funny because My dad isn't in the Nation of Islam anymore, but he listened to the J Electronica stuff, and he was just like, bro, like this is like too religious even for me. He heard all of like the Farrakhan samples. He heard like the Elijah Muhammad samples. My dad was like, this is like gospel music for Nation of Islam members.
Yeah, it is. It pretty much is. Like, yeah, sometimes it's a little much. Like, I definitely prefer the way like Wu-Tang and like Yasin kind of tackled it more than Jay Electronica. Because Jay Electronica gets a little scary with it. Like, he's like a little too much of like a direct disciple of Farrakhan for my personal taste, to be honest. He's a great rapper though. But like, cause like y'all know, after Elijah Muhammad died, the nation like kind of split into two different nations for like a decade.
Oh, I was gonna say the man know about that.
Yeah, because it was like Elijah Muhammad's kid, I think, was actually taking it in like a more politically left direction, and Farrakhan was just kind of continuing the original nation, and that's kind of the one that kind of took over eventually, and they're still doing the same thing. It's like they do great stuff for Black people, but I feel like the reason they maybe still exist is because they're not really doing they're not posing a real political threat.
Yeah, of course.
So like there's good and bad, but like
I was gonna say, man, what do you have to say about that? Because I was gonna say you're completely tapped into like you know the background with that.
Yeah, currently I'm the Imam of a masjid that is a spiritual successor of the Warthdeen Muhammad Society, which was the split that happened and took place in the late 90s, actually early 90s. And with that split came a lot of problems, because what ended up happening was a lot of the Muslims at the time began to practice a form of what is considered Orthodox or Sunni Islam. And that's actually what you will find influencing like this kind of thing that I'm seeing you guys reference a lot. You're like, I see a lot of like rappers that just happen to be Muslim. Right? And because in our faith, music is you'll see some opinions and we'll say music is haram, right? Where it's just like it's not allowed, right? But the thing is, that's a very difficult subject to broach because it's very scholarly, but music is incredibly potent and powerful. It can influence you in ways that are positive and negative, right? Music can push you towards bad things and often does, and it can be used as a weapon, right? Sociologically, we can look at our own community, right? As African Americans, can we really admit that all of our music has done good for our culture, right? Like, let's be real, right? We have literally seen the decline of our culture because of music, right? And that's actually incredibly scary, right? Music to me has been such a positive influence, right? Because music has always been tapped into something very spiritual and something very psychologically building of positive attributes, right? Like it's not something that was enforcing that which was like negative, right? Which is like materialism, consumerism, capitalism, right? It was something that was it was forcing me to reflect, right? Poetic music, rap, rhythm, and poetry, right? Which is what it's meant to be, right? But what ends up happening is now rap is kind of lumped into this music style that I don't even consider poetry. Like it's just a guy saying things over a beat, and those things happen to rhyme, right? Like they're not actually doing anything psychologically positive or spiritually uplifting, right? They're just enforcing the cultural norms that are found in America and in the West, and it doesn't really challenge the system, right? This is the radio music you were mentioning earlier, right? That like that's what radio music tends to be, right? It's like they don't want anything challenging the system, right? So at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and our religion, he was trying to teach people, right? And if you know anything about the Quran, it's recited in a melodious way, right? You don't just say the Quran, right? Right? Like right now, we're in the month of Ramadan. Every single day, took a day off today, but I've been leading Tarawih prayers, which is me reciting Quran in a melodious. Some people would even say singing it, right? You know, and I'll give you an example. It's like Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, right? It sounds like something that is sung, right? So while he was revealing this Quran, which literally means recitation, by the way, he's reciting these words, right? People would play music outside while he was trying to recite this, and they would invite dancers, belly dancers, that had bangles on that would shake and create all this noise, right? So you could basically compare it to, like, let's say Qasim Bey is at a concert, right? And he's laying down some truth, right, in his lyrics, right? But right outside, like while he's doing this, you have 2 Chains and some strippers right next door. Right? No, this is literally the equivalent, right? And you're like, so the people are trying to like engage in this message, but they're like looking over like, I mean, that's kind of cool. Like, you know, like they can't really get into what's being given to them because there's this thing that's tapping into their primal urges, right? That's right next door, right? So music was kind of made impermissible because it distracts you from that which is good, right? Which is actually beneficial for society, right? In general, there's kind of, but in some ways, I don't really take that opinion as harsh as others would. I do agree with some scholarly opinions, but personally, I've had music be such an integral part of my life that it influenced change, right? And it influenced betterment in my life, right? But I've also had moments where music fed into my ego and almost destroyed me, right? Because the music fed into something dangerously, powerfully destructive in my soul. And it fed that. And I kept wanting to feed it because it made me feel strong. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel like, man, I could do this. I could do this. But what ended up happening was I was destroying the relationships in my life because I was feeding that part of my soul and my ego, that which was not good for it, which is not beneficial, right? So music to me has a very spiritually powerful thing, and this is why Muslims tend not to be rappers, right? We tend to avoid being associated with that. Like actual like Muslim rappers, very rare. Like where it's like you're a rapper who does Muslim rap, because we're very mindful of, because we believe in God and we believe in having to stand with stand for trial with God about our actions and what we put out into the world, right? So if we put out words that misguide people and then harm them, we'll be held to account for that, right? So you'll actually rarely find us preaching our religion because we care about our religion. We're like, no, we're not going to just like whatever, just give that to you. Like, no. Like, we're going to talk about what we care about, right? Like we'll connect with the people about like, okay, let's feed the hungry. Let's talk about the oppression of the imperialist system. Let's talk about America and the fact that they're two-faced and they're hypocrites in their foreign affairs and things like this. Let's talk about how they've treated Black people in this country for the past 400 years and how they've oppressed us and have stopped us from succeeding. You know, we can talk about that stuff in our music, right? But then me trying to preach to you about God, that's when it becomes dangerous, because then I have to be held to account for what I'm saying. Because then if I make a mistake, if I tell you something about God that I'm just making up on the spot, then that's like, am I really actually doing my job right? So it's like you'll rarely find that, right? And that's kind of why you see it that way. It's like personally, right? Like I'm a rapper. I used to rap all the time. I was pretty good at it, but I don't really do that much anymore, right? Because it's something that to me became incredibly like it fed my ego and it fed something dangerous to me. So I was just like, I'll just put this to the side. This is not my thing, right? I can't separate my ego from this, and I don't want to feed that part of myself, right? So I just kind of went elsewhere with my spiritual path, but I'm not gonna like tell somebody else like, hey, you can't do that, because in my faith we have a very particular concept called la ikraha fi din, which means there is no compulsion in religious practice. That I can't compel you to believe the way I believe or to practice anything in the way I believe it. All I can do is tell you what I believe, invite you to that, and if you want to, you can. If you don't have to.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was gonna say you can go ahead, Shy.
Oh no, I was gonna say I agree with that a lot. Like on one hand, like music is definitely and can be educational, but this is because when I first started getting into this stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm learning about all this stuff, but like where I'm at now, like I feel like no one should be getting their like actual political or spiritual education from music. It's more of like a gateway. Like in Pathfinders, like me and Nas talk a lot about like blackness, politics, and like religion, spiritualism, but more so in a way how we personally engage with it. And then that kind of could lead to someone like looking into it for themselves. Like when I listen to like Billy Woods talk about like the decolonization of Zimbabwe, I'm not just sitting listening to the lyrics and then going like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go. I know all I need to know about Robert Mugabe and all that. Like then it'll steer or like someone talking about Frantz Fanon or something like that. Like it should lead you to want to go read Wretched of the Earth or Black Skin, White Mask, not to just peep the music and then start trying to like front like your, like I remember being like 16 listening to Public Enemy and like being like, all right, like here's all this like these like little slivers of information, but I would take it in and then like think that I knew like all the like things that are associated with it that like they don't even mention in the music, because it's like kind of just it's just like the path to like actually educating yourself about these things. And like the people delivering it are very flawed too. I mean, and also like the people you learn, like Frantz Fanon was very flawed. Malcolm X was very flawed. Huey Newton was very flawed. But like, I don't know. A musician is a musician. And like, obviously you can be more than one thing, but like, I don't know. I just feel like it is definitely kind of dangerous to like just stop where you're like receiving the initial parts of the information. Like you want to kind of go deeper into the source of it. And like, cause music, it definitely, cause like I kind of regard music as my spirituality almost. Like, I guess like it's just like it probably is the most important thing in my life. And it has definitely like helps me grow and like become a much more community like oriented human, because it's like it's given me a space and a community to actually participate in and to like do something that like really means a lot to me, like deep down in my core. And then through that, I can kind of participate in these other things that the music is about at my own leisure. But like, that's more so also because I'm not the one who should be educating people on something that I only kind of know like a tertiary amount of information on. Like I could steer you in a good direction, but then the rest is kind of up to the individual. So like it definitely can be one way or the other, like dangerous. Like, you listen to a lot of stuff, and especially a lot of the radio music, especially now, is like definitely super vapid. I mean, it kind of always has been, but now, like, because also mainstream music is kind of, the industry is very weird now. Like, there's not really a lot of superstars. It's like a lot of just like a lot of things are kind of slipping through the cracks. Like you hear some really wild, some super wild stuff just playing casually on the radio. That like probably would not have even flown 30 years ago, because things are just becoming so delineated between like what is actually like you know, we don't have like people talk about the big three, which was whoever, what is it, Kendrick and J. Cole and Drake. That was established in 15, 16 years ago. Like the way trends usually go, like we should have had a new kind of top whatever artists by now, but that's not happening because music is just the way the world is now with the internet and the accessibility and everything. Like it's a lot less controlled. There's a lot more room to people fall into weird rabbit holes and echo chambers and like kind of fall into the same thing you find with like a lot of Gen Z men now. It's like a lot of them are falling into like the manosphere and like alt-right stuff. And like, there's not really any way to prevent it because everyone's just kind of attached to like these insular kind of like ways of thinking because they just stay on the internet. And there's not really anyone to really combat their way of thinking in a real way. It's like you get your algorithm and then your algorithm just kind of feeds into what you already believe. And like, this goes even deeper than music at this point. But like music is the thing that most people kind of get influenced by, especially young people. So it's just this very possible scary feedback loop. And then the inverse, it can be like a really beautiful thing that leads you to becoming a much better person. But I feel like it is definitely up to the individual to kind of do that. And the way that the world's going is just like outside influence is becoming less and less prominent, I feel. So it's like, I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be like kind of some kind of like mass awakening of people realizing they need to be way more careful with like the things they ingest and the things that they kind of put out into the world. But that's like another discussion on how that could even be implemented, I guess.
I kind of want to extend that discussion to extend what you just said too, because what we're really talking about here is consumption practices. It's really the conversations we're having around here is like consumption, specifically musical consumption, the connection, spiritual consumption, because music is not just like material consumption. You're not just consuming an art, you're consuming, like you talked about, there's a spiritual element to it. So your spirit's also consuming the thing, not just your mind and your body. But it kind of reminds me of some discussions I have in class where we would read these readings from all these different like thinkers. So we're taking like pop culture and critical and cultural studies, and they have all these thinkers from the Frankfurt School, the Birmingham School, and all these folks, and they'll talk about like how like people consume. Some are like, oh, people are passive consumers. Some want to give people agency to consumers, and what you both touched on, I've like talked in class where I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I disagree with insert Frankfurt School scholar here. They're like, yeah, we are conscious consumers and stuff like that. Yeah, we consciously choose what we want to consume in many ways. With that being said, if we consciously choose what we consume, then we are actively responsible for maintaining certain systems and certain forms of oppression through our consumption habits. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise that like certain music is placed into the highest of the Billboard charts and on the radios and streamed and on TikTok and all these things, because like everybody's consuming it. It's easy to consume as well. It's like we're being given like, it's like fast food basically. And it's like the current landscape is like we are all going to like a fast food buffet. I don't even know if it exists. It's like we're all going to Golden Corral. Like people don't go to Golden Corral for like quality food. They're going to Golden Corral so they can eat. So we're just going to like these different Golden Corrals, and we're just like taking in what we want. It's like someone might want I want the pizza. That might be like Lil Baby, or like, I want like the baked chicken here, or I might want this and this and that. You're just catering a meal to like your specific interest. Is it cooked to the highest quality? No, but that's not why you went there. And so like, I had some more points I wanted to go along to it, but I think it's leaving me. But basically, like, I think this conversation is so interesting because it's really making. I hope it's making everybody who's watching just think about, like, why do we like what we like? In regards to music, why do we like this artist? Like, now I'm hearing you both thinking. I'm a few even questioning some of my favorite artists. I'm like, why do I like so and so much? What feelings do I get involved with this person? And I don't want to get your name wrong. I'll get your name wrong. But Imam, I did not want to get your name wrong. I my memory's like it disappears. But
Abdullah.
Can I get your name first of all? I want to make sure
Abdullah Qasim. You don't have to say the last part.
Okay.
Abdullah Qasim.
Okay. So is that okay?
Yeah.
You said yeah. Okay. And you brought up something I really liked. You talked about an atmosphere that came with music. And one of the artists that I immediately thought about was Kamasi Washington. He's he's a multi-instrumentalist, progressive jazz artist. And I remember I don't know how I found his music. I know he was on The Pimp a Butterfly. He was playing the saxophone in like the little interlude, Ain't Free song, the second song of the track. And I don't know how I found him. But like, I just remember listening to like some beats. I think it was Street Fighter Moss was the first song I listened to his. It just went from the beats to a little bit more of a modern sound, a little funk sound. Like, there's also obviously spiritual elements to funk and like funkadelic and Parliament, stuff like that. And then I remember, like, as soon as it gets to the hook, it's just choir. It's just a choir in the background. I'm like, I'm not used to this. I actually like really like. And mind you, I'd already been playing the trumpet for a while, so I have a really soft spot for jazz. My dad would play jazz music when I was going over his house, jazz, funk, soul. And so I'm listening to this jazz being orchestrated in a way that almost reminded me of like a movie. Like, I felt like I was sitting in through this like Afrocentric, Parliament funkadelic-esque cinematic experience. And I just like let go of anything I was with at the time. And I'm like, I just want to engage with the atmosphere here. And now he's like one of my favorite artists just because of how distinct his sound is to me. But yeah, I went on my little mini tangent. But I know Maryam got some stuff she wants.
I was gonna say one thing, Imam, you were talking about was when you were talking about how music could have negative consequences, and like it could, have you, drop into vices. I think about even the artists I like that are quote unquote conscious. Like, and if you look at my Instagram, if you see my Twitter, my favorite rapper is Ab-Soul. And I'm a huge Ab-Soul fan, crazy about Ab-Soul. But one thing about him is like, he's an artist, and like me, he's dealt with depression. And I think about some of his music, and when I've gone to his concerts, I think his music, like Lupe's and other rappers that take like a spiritual approach, his music though has done a lot for me. But then I think about some of the things he says in his music, and it is almost like he has a song called Drugs, and the acronym is Don't Ruin Us, God Said. And I'm like, that on one hand, like he's trying to warn people, like, drugs is like you're ruining yourself. But on another hand, the song is kind of like, unfortunately, I think about it and I'm like, this song is just like essentially just one big vice. And it's, you can tell, like, when you listen to his music, it's like it's an ongoing battle that he's having, that he's telling you about. He's illustrating like that battle. And that's what I went out when you were talking. Like, on one hand, I appreciate what he's going through, and he's not preachy about it. But on another hand, you can see the path he's taking when he like describes things with his lyrics. So that was something that's always interesting to me, because music can like you can fall into some stuff. And I know there are music there's songs I've listened to, even if it is a song trying to wake me up or trying to help me, sometimes because of something I'm going through, it still makes me depressed. Like the one song he has, the Book of Soul, he's basing that off the Book of Job. But if you read the Bible and the Book of Job, Job was, for lack of a better term, he was getting his butt kicked in life. Like, it wasn't like a happy a story. And I think about stuff like that consistently.
If I'll even add too, I think an artist of mine that kind of That's kind of in the same vein. Like one of my favorite artists is like Smino, and like Smino is known for like being like kind of so funk based.
And he'll be back. Like we do this a lot, and every time we there Doniven is, we disappear like so much through these streets.
I'm back. I'm like, oh, come on, like I'm like
the Empire gonna make me disappear. Trying to prevent us from talking.
But yeah, like Smino's known for having like the funky bass lines, like the really like unique beats and production. And he is skilled on the mic too. I feel like people underrate just because he has a certain like he's very southern based in his songs. Like he doesn't have any lyricism. I'm looking at lyrics. I'm like, oh, that was actually kind of slick. I actually got to give you that one. But then now it's like, but I'm also even coming from this conversation. I'm like, I'm actually now really thinking what he says. And some of his songs, like obviously, it's like sex, weed, different kinds of drugs and stuff like that. But then when you get to some songs where it's like why he's doing it, and like I'm thinking about one of his popular songs, like Amphetamine, where like the whole song, it's a whole song about basically, I think I want to say him like coping and going to drugs as a means to cope. And this isn't even the only song he does this in. Like there's a few songs of his where he kind of points to drugs as like this coping thing. And I'm like I'm looking at the lyrics on like Spotify, and I'm like, oh, is he okay? I'm like, oh, he's really going through something. Like he's actually going through stuff. Wait a sec. I'm just listening to it. I'm smoking with friends. Like I made it through college because of this man's music. And then but now I'm also in the point where I'm also now, because of the comp, I'm questioning like, okay, like what did that song really tell about my experience at the time? And like a lot, and like what he's going through. And for you to be making kind of songs, like, are we missing something to matter? Like you see that with a lot of artists, even the biggest artists. Like the whole mumble rap phase in the late 2010s, mumble rap, hard quotes phase in the late 2010s, where they said all they do is they mumble their lyrics. They're just talking about drugs and stuff like that, lean and all these things. But it's like, have you actually sat down and listened to them? They are depressed. They are coping with a lot of stuff. And it seems that like the only this is an important question too. We should get to this.
I was gonna wait till you finish. I was gonna use this as like a closer because it is getting late.
Yeah. But they're using this as a means to like get through life. And I think about how the realities of empire, where a lot of folks turn to these sort of things. So that probably is like actually a really fitting segue to this question that Jean asked. If music helped us through hard times, or helped you specifically through hard times.
I was gonna say we can let the guests answer for that first, and then Doniven, if you and me want to answer and close out, we'll do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could start. I mean, definitely. Like when I was younger, it kind of helped me get through. I mean, because like what I mentioned before, when I first got into like really focusing on like the aspects of like hip hop that were centered on Blackness and all that, it helped me kind of cope with like not really having a Black community outside my like immediate household. You know, it's helped me kind of just go through like phases of depression and things like that, obviously. And like more recently, like stuff I'm working on kind of helps me process things. Like the most recent project that I'm like kind of just finishing up now kind of started based off like, because I just turned 30. So like I've been really like thinking a lot about mortality, things like that. And like throughout between like 10 and 19, pretty much like my mom's entire like my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my grandpa, my great-grandpa, my great-grandma all died in like a 9-10 year period. and then also like my sister's an addict, and like a lot of my family are addicts. So it's just like a lot of loss in like a very short period of time where I was still developing. And I didn't really start noticing the effects that had on me until the past couple years, to be honest. Like I thought I was just like kind of gliding through it, like, you know, just kind of like sliding off my back. And then I kind of hit like this phase of adulthood, and I'm like, oh wait. And it was kind of spurred by, I don't know if any of y'all know he's this underground rapper from New York. He died 2024, a few days before my 29th birthday. And this was also like 2 weeks after I had met him in real life for the first time. And that's kind of what because I didn't even really know him like that, but it was just kind of crazy. Just like you meet someone and you shake their hand and talk to them, and then a few weeks later they're gone. And it was a surprise to everybody. And then also I'm like exiting my 20s. So that all this kind of piled on to me. And like this last record I made is just like, that was like the impetus of it. Like just kind of making sense of the whole aspect of like, oh yeah, like, nah, we're all very fragile and life is not infinite, and just all these kind of things. And it did help a lot, just kind of putting all that stuff like down to paper, and like things that I didn't even know were like bothering me and things like that. So definitely both aspects, listening and creating, have really, really helped me through a lot of problems and hard times in life, for sure.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. So, to just address the question, it's kind of a mixed answer. Would I say music itself helped me through the hard times? I'm not so sure. I had a very weird relationship with music. I was raised in music, right? From the moment I could be conscious, I was at a piano. From the moment I became an adolescent, I had a guitar or a bass guitar in my hand, or I was singing in the choir, and I was learning jazz chords and scales and playing funk with my father. And I mean, I have fond memories of, like after church, me and the band would just improv, right? And we would just play jazz for like an hour, right? Just free form jazz. And like I have fond memories of that. But the thing was, like, music itself was only an extension of something deeper and spiritual that I was trying to tap into, which was that connection to my creator, right? Like I wanted to know why I was here and why I was seeing so much struggle, right? As a like I was born in Miami, Florida, then flew to Texas, and then went to Germany throughout my life because my mother's German, and my family's from Mississippi. So like cultural shocks all over the place, right? But I also I had to live in this kind of like place where I had no identity, right? Music kind of became that like foundational place where I could seek comfort, right? But because of my like lack of cultural like roots and being descended from slaves, so being completely disconnected from like African true tribal culture, then being from Germany, from a family that was completely almost wiped out and completely destroyed by World War II and fascism, and like I didn't know who I was, right? So I was always just trying to latch on to whatever could get me through to the next phase, right? So music was kind of just me riding whatever wave was there that made me feel comfortable in that moment, right? So it was like, okay, I'm struggling with anger, so all of a sudden I'm listening to heavy metal, right? Because metal was letting me express that rage, right? As I became more conscious, and I was that young, rebellious 16-year-old in high school, realizing how fascistic and imperialist, like evil colonial state that America was. I started Nazi saluting the flag in the middle of class. Whenever everybody would get up and hold their hand to their heart, I would have a Nazi salute. I got in trouble so many times, right? And the teachers would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm telling my kids, I'm telling my friends, I'm like, "Dude, do you not know what we are? Have you not figured it out yet? Like, this is who we are. Have you not figured it out?" All right. So, so I was that guy, and then I became more into rap music, right? Because then it was like that was so politically charged, right? Like rap music, like at its core, right? Like not the bull crap that they, which is sadly which is actually not even, I wouldn't even call it bull crap. It's a symptom, right, of a bigger problem, right? Like you were saying, like this mumble rap and all this stuff. When you really listen to it, these guys are trying to cope with their realities, right? The reality on the ground, right? I know this reality very well. I was homeless for about 4 years, right? I lost, I don't know how many friends to gun violence, to overdose, right? I've literally, seen people die because of the realities that this society has created for us, right? And so it's like, of course, you're gonna try to cope with that, right? And if you can make a song that appeals to like a broader audience, and then you make money to get you out the hood, yeah, you're gonna do it, right? Like you're like, hey, I want to talk about some other stuff, but F that, bro. This is what they want to hear, right? This is what they're gonna spin in the club, right? So it's like you're gonna try to sneak in some stuff, right? But you're gonna talk about the realities, right? Like I remember thinking back in the day, like Chief Keef, like how smart that dude was. Sometimes I was like, this guy knew how to play this system, bro. He knew exactly what he was doing, right? And everybody wants to talk like they used to talk mad crap about him, right? But I remember being in high school, like I go hard in the like in the paint, bro. Like I was like, yo, this guy is killing it because he's saying something that is like so relevant to like the cultural reality of young black men, and it appeals to our cultural sensibilities. But people are like on the outside going, "Oh man, that's so ignorant and stupid and blah blah, it's dreadhead young ninja stuff," right? And I'm just like, nah, bro. This is something deeper. He's trying to get out the hood, so he's appealing to what you think we are, right? He's appealing to what other people outside of our culture think about us, so that he can play that system to get out. Because this is what the system has done to us, right? It makes us almost have to be, this tap dancing, buffoon to get out of a situation. So that's what music is said to me in some ways. Like we're engaging with this. So yeah, it gets us through these hard times, right? But then we have to ask ourselves, what is it truly reflective of, right? And what are the deeper realities of what music is, right? Because the music that is the most impactful, right, to us tends to be that which is trying to lift you out of that position, right, out of that place and put you in a better place spiritually, right? So music may have been the crutch I was standing on, but it was the drive to remove myself from the system that I was in. That was what actually got me through, right? It was just music was like the background to that, right? Music was the support system because it was all I had, right? I didn't have the Quran. I didn't have my religion. When you're stripped of all those cultural systems and all those things, you start to cling to whatever you can. So music is what I clung to, right? And it's because it's what what was available to me, right? And it's what's available to all of us at the end of the day. So it's like we can downplay the importance of music or upplay it. But the reality is it's our internal spiritual state that is the most important thing. And music is a reflection of that, right? So, I mean, it's an important question, to address the overall arching like theme of this episode, the spiritual architecture of Black resistance. Music has been that, right? Music has been the stage for that resistance at all points in Black history, right? If it was a cappella, if it was poetry, if it was choir and gospel music, it has always been a position in which we had creative freedom, and we could say what we wanted to say, and we could do what we wanted to do, and we could finally feel like that boot wasn't on our neck, that whip wasn't on our back, and that tree didn't hang my uncle last week, right? Like you could finally feel free of that oppression in music, right? Because music allowed us to express ourselves fully and freely, right? So in some ways, you know, music got me through hard times, but it was the overall like struggle internally, right? The cultural struggle that we all inherit as Black people in America, right? As descendants of African Americans, as descendants of the Africans brought over in those ships. Right? That drive to survive, right? That's what fuels the music. Not the music that got you through the hard times. It was you that got you through it with music.
A great way to close out. This is why I had Imam on. I needed someone who sounded good and was poetic and also had a really good, and that's why I had Imam in the MC. I'm like, okay, poetic, sounds good message. I was gonna say, Doniven, if you wanted to answer the question, I was gonna answer the question, we close out.
How am I supposed to follow that up? How am I supposed to follow that up? I'm listening to this and I'm like, hold on, you making me rethink life and everything. I'm like, like, all right, dang, why do I listen to music a certain way? And then I'm like, oh wait, I gotta speak. Dang it. But I guess to answer the question, like, has music gotten me through hard times? Of course, but it's gotten me through hard times with different ways. Like high school, like Donnie, in like small town atmosphere, listen to certain music for different ways than 24-year-old me is listening to music. And I think what I want out of music was also different too. I think that with me, when I was younger, I wanted music that kind of separated me from a lot of folks. Like a lot of this was also I was on that anti-mumble rap stuff. I'll admit, which is weird considering who I would later gravitate to. But like at that point, I was just like, man, rap music isn't the same as what it used to be. I need to listen to that real stuff. And so I was listening to a lot of super technical stuff, and this was coinciding with me trying to learn how to do stuff. And I'm like, I'm trying to be like the super technical dude. Some of the fast rappers, like the Tech Nines and stuff like that too. But like, I got older, listened to the songs. I'm like, you're doing the same thing. This is kind of boring. I want to move on. I want to move on from this sort of thing. But I think recently it's kind of just been a matter of just like, what was the music that I just enjoyed when I didn't have a bunch of weight on me. They didn't have the academic weight on me. I was back at home and I was just listening to a song that would just kind of remind me of like when I'm with my family or my close friends. Like my dad is a huge fan of the Blackbirds, which were like a jazz funk group, a funk fusion group from the 70s. They actually went to Howard. And so I remember getting back. I remember hanging out with him right before I left for the DMV, and some of the songs I'd listened to towards the end of my first year were Blackbird songs, and I would just kind of play the albums that my dad had, and I would kind of relive those like feelings. Like they have a song called Happy Music, and my dad would like, when we drive around town, we just chat, he'd be like, you know, every time you put this song, you always smile. You always smile when you was a kid. It just like just your signature smile was there, and I would always he would spam the song because he knew I loved the song and he loved the song, so we would like bond on the song and on the band. He would just let the albums just play. So like usually like if I'm gonna like go through a hard time, it's usually something that just like something that made me like enjoy, nothing too complex. Like sometimes it'll be complex, but something just made me enjoy something simple. Just being able to smile one day, see family along those lines. So I think that's the best way I can articulate it now, because I probably have a lot I got to journal after this.
No, I thought about that too. Like when everyone was talking, I'll say in terms of music in hard times, like music is one of the main inspirations behind Iyansa and the music of like whether it's hip hop and reggae and dang, like I wish I had gotten to talk about reggae during the stream, but I mean, we'll maybe me and you, Doniven, will talk about reggae another time because reggae is like
bookmark it. We're gonna bookmark it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have a reggae episode, but the music though is I'll say all Black music, even gospel, as someone even who hasn't been born Christian and doesn't have like, I mean, I still have Christian influence even though I am not Christian because. You know, to be Black in America, I don't think you can necessarily run away from any Christian influence, even if you really want to. But all of I'd say like the music, whether it's nasheeds, whether it's gospel, whether it's reggae, hip hop, R&B. It's crazy. We were talking about Farrakhan. Farrakhan, people don't know Farrakhan was a calypso singer. He had some hits. He had one song. People don't know another. He had a song, and you can play it. It's him, and he's singing. It's easy to tell a white man's heaven is a Black man's hell. And that was the song back then. You know what? I was gonna say if any rappers watching this, y'all should sample that because it's true. But music definitely got me through hard times, especially anything that African people of African descent have made. But I was gonna say, this was a great stream. Thank you so much to Imam Qasim and to blackchai for coming on and then like for just engaging in this conversation. I hope the audience definitely enjoyed it. And before we go, I'll say on behalf of Iyansa, not all of us are Muslim, but I'm Muslim, so I'll say Ramadan Mubarak. And I'll also say happy reggae month because it's also reggae month as well. Even though this month I have not been listening to any music so far as of the last 48 hours because it isn't Ramadan. So I hope everyone enjoyed the stream. We're going to close this out and we'll say Kupete Bulakai, cut off the head, burn down the house. But yeah, this was